En we gaan ook switchen naar Engels, omdat het ook wel makkelijker is voor anderen. So so we are switching to English for others that maybe are watching the recording. I'm not sure if there's everybody in the call actually speaks Dutch, so I think English anyway is good. So we will do today's session in roughly, I think, 2 folds. We'll start with a quick intro about myself, and then a little bit about Mxlint, and then we will go create our first rule together, and then probably if you have more time, we can create a new one with you if you have an idea for a new one. At least something that is simple, I think, because we can't create any rule that you come up with yet. And if there's anyone has any specific question for today, that maybe you can already share. I'm not sure if anybody have any specific needs, then we can accommodate that already. No. All right, so it's a two-way thing. So if you have a two-way conversation in a way, if you have anything to ask or to either to add or to ask, just feel free to interrupt and do it. It should be kind of like we're having coffee in a way.
Let's get some done.
Yeah. All right, so I'm Steven Chang, or Steven. In recent years, it's easier for others to remember, I suppose. I used to build Manix applications a long time ago. I was one of the core developers of the Manix Cloud Portal. You might not know it anymore, but it is part of the Manix Developer Portal for a long time. I think it still is. I don't know so much because I don't actually use the Manix Cloud. I think in 10 years now or so now. So my knowledge about that is a bit outdated. But since then, since I left Manix, I did other things, and then a few years back, I started this project, Mxlint, because I thought that having in the Manix ecosystem, there's a need for quality guardrails that is open, and that you can create rules however you want. And it was not possible back then, and so Mxlint tries to fill that gap essentially to give the community a way to implement rules their own way and in an open system essentially. So there's a few concepts. We're not going to do an in-depth introduction of Mxlint today. Maybe we'll do it another time. Today's focus is about creating a new rule, but you still need kind of like some basic understanding. So how it works. So I will start with sharing my screen here. This one is. Yeah, so the first thing is that you should know is we have a website, mxlint.com. It's a little bit outdated now. There's a few functions you can do. So things like an Studio Pro extension to have a graphical interface. We are not going to dive into that today. We are going to do like the rule development doesn't actually need a UI, so we will do that. We'll skip the Studio Pro extension topic for today. So the items that, or at least the ideas that, or the terminologies kind of that you need to know now is we have the Mxlint CLI. That's essentially the core of the project. All the heavy lifting and the logic complexity is mostly built in the CLI, and the CLI essentially has two functions, well, actually more functions, but the core function now is to convert the Mendix model from MPR formats to a bunch of YAML files that you can see. For instance, maybe I will do it from a different perspective. So we would do it like what's it called, more practical, let's say. So we have a new version that was released a few days, 2 days ago. And what you can do, I'm on a Mac, so I will download the Darwin ARM version, but if you're on Windows, you can download this one. And what I did, so you can I can do it now, but yeah, I guess we can do it now. So I can click on this one. It's going to be mostly instructions for Mac. So I've downloaded that file, and then I will copy. So I'll copy the. I can make it bigger. This one. So this one we'll call it Mxlint here. And HTML. Okay. So this is a Mac thing. Come on. I need to security. As a Mac, we need to enable because I downloaded from the internet. I need to allow it to run. And I will ask again. Yeah. So now we have Mxlint. I had to. So now, so this actually may be new for most of you since we have changed the way that you invoke Mxlint CLI now. So now it uses a configuration file. But maybe before we'll jump back and forth a little bit here. So I have a test project here that I just created. I will open it up in Studio Pro if it opens. So this is just a very a blank app that doesn't have much. But like I said, I don't really build many apps anymore. So yeah, you might find weird things that I do, but we will. So what I have done is I created just an empty microflow with a name like a BCO user. Probably not the right way, but this is like one microflow, and we have another one here that is, I guess, default is also empty. Maybe we can add something here. We can add like a log or something. Not very creative, so. Test. Test mode. Okay, so I made a little change there, and now what I can do is I can call Mxlint Mendix cache. At least that's where I put it. And now we have a new setup. So now we have a configuration file which normally it should work out of the box. But now I include extra rules and stuff. But so now we can call this to do export model, if I recall. So what this process does is it will convert the current Minix model into a bunch of YAML files. So if you do git status, we will see that we have modified the BCO user microflow. And this is another file that has been modified because just as how MPR version 2 works, every document in your project within Studio Pro is written out to be a file, so MX unit document. So if you do a git diff, you can also see that what we have done in the Studio Pro is that we have added an activity, which is a log message activity. And and essentially this is the textual representation of what we did in Studio Pro. So you're wondering why I'll be doing this. So this is a very important process to do because without converting the MPR, so your model, Minix application model, into a format that is open, in this case, a YAML format, it will be difficult to essentially write rules to check them. Right? So we don't want to, at least the design of Mxlint is that we do not actually require Studio Pro to work. And it's an important requirement because it follows the other patterns in the rest of the world where when you produce code, you can have different systems to validate the code without, let's say, to have the compiler do all the work all the time. So that follows that principle. Another thing, maybe if you open this YAML file, so we open it here. We also see that nowadays we have this addition that besides that this like raw conversion of the YAML file, we also have now like a pseudocode that is automatically also generated so that you can essentially read like in text format what this microflow does. So in this case, as we will compare this microflow, which doesn't do much, which is logging a message, is converted to this textual representation. It doesn't have like semantic value. It's just so that if you look at the microflow, you can actually see immediately what this does from a human perspective. Because if I would look at this, you probably will agree, it's not very like what is happening here. There's like a lot of things, like too much detail. So the code helps you understand that. So that's the first thing. So now we have a file essentially that we can do something with, as in with all the tools. It's just a text file. And the next thing is to create a rule. So creating a rule in maybe before we create the rules, we can also just run the other use case, which is just like linting for those. Yeah, we have a question from Jelle.
Yes, I'm curious about how does the pseudocode, how does it react on, for example, decision split within a microflow?
Yeah, we can add that. So let's decision. Yeah, it's still like experimental, so I'm also curious what it will do. But, I'm not very creative with these things, but let's see. So let's see if this user is equals I don't know, Hank. It makes no sense, obviously, this split, but so true or false. You can save this, and we can rerun. . So this file changed. So it will makes it like this. So it's kind of weird, I guess, but yeah. Oh, we don't actually have like statements. Maybe we should have like a statement here, like log true or something. We can do other activities, but I'm just lazy. I'm not very creative. So this is true. Okay. So I will make it this. So if current user equals Hank, or user name Hank, then it will go to L2, which is here. So it will be true. And if it's not equal to Hank, it will go to L002, which is false. Mm. Yeah, so yeah, there's a more complicated logic, but yeah, this can be much better, I suppose, in terms of readability, but I think it's already one step forward from the lines of YAML files. It transforms it into this, so that you can follow roughly what's happening.
Yes, thank you. It's definitely a start. So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. All right, so I showed, like, for instance, one of the use cases of, well, the core use case of Mxlint is the linting process. So now we're just showing you with a few like rules, default rules that we have. So what it can give you things like, for instance, here it says, for this given rule, there are a few, there's one failure. I know it's not very readable now. The idea is that you don't actually use this in like day to day, like the CLI itself. It also produces the same thing in JSON file format, and that JSON file um, can be read by other systems to show you in a nice user interface, etc. Right? So that's the idea. The CLI is mostly used in CI systems where where can be part of a pipeline and things like that. So the output is let's say not it's more like just for quick consumption, not for I would say day-to-day things. So the overview of this output of linting is it tells you for each rule that is defined, it will check against a list of documents that should be checked by this rule. And then for each of those documents, then it will tell you whether it passes or it will fail, etc. And here it doesn't say the actual reason. So the actual reasons, you can see them here. So it's like a summary of all the failures that happen. So I guess when you do a linting process, most of the time you're interested in what fails, so what I can fix, etc. So that's why the first part of the list includes everything, but towards the end we mostly share with the user what really went wrong and what you can do about it. So for instance, this one we have a naming convention, which is what we're gonna create in a second, or another one similar to it, that all microflows must start with a certain prefix. So this is at least what, according to Mendix best practices. Again, it can be different for you as different organizations, different teams. You can have different conventions. So that's we will do in a second, how to, like, there's a create your own rule that meets what your team wants it to be. And so that it's not, not everybody agrees with the naming conventions, for instance, right? The other ones is, for instance, here that we have a demo user that should be disabled. And in this case, it says that the business application should disable demo users. So we can also fix that now, for instance, so we can see what the changes. So let's fix this one, which is disable demo users. If we go to, I forgot where it is. I guess it's here. No, it's the settings. Where is it?
So Steven, with this new setup, will it also be easier then to say these rules I don't want to be checked for my the standard rule set that is provided by the Mxlint rules GitHub?
Yeah, there are a few ways to change that. Let me first change this one. Do you guys remember where's the?
I think you need to set to production and then.
Oh, okay, that was it. Okay, right. Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's another evidence I don't use the Studio Pro that often. Enable save, you say no, and then you save. We re-export, and we run the lint. Yeah, so normally in your Studio Pro, when you use it as part of Studio Pro, you don't have to do this process yourself by hand. We are just doing it now so that you understand also the process, really what happens behind the scenes. And in the Studio Pro extension workflow, they will just magically, in a way, update and rerun, etc. So now we don't see the demo user warning anymore. So that one is gone. So that's we have like, let's say, a few less to fix. Yeah. So about the rules. So in the new system, what we have is you can we introduced a new concept called rule sets. The idea is that you can you can essentially assemble your own set of like you can put together a few rules, like group the rules in the rule sets, and then you can include them into the project. So what this allows you to do is, yeah, I mean, not everybody wants to use the default rules that we have published on the project. You don't have to use this at all. You can put something else here, make your own ones, and then it will work. And the idea here is that you can define them in, they can be pulled from different sources. It can be from HTTP or Git can also work, as long as your Git configuration allows you to clone that location. Or it can refer to rules within the project. So I can imagine that maybe sometimes you do want to have rules specific to the project because of certain, I don't know, integrations or something that you want to be checked to be ensured that it always have a certain convention or something. Then you can have it also put in here. So that's how you can do it this way. We also have a support for skipping. So in the previous version, you would say in something like in the documentation. So this is the microflow. Where is my something? Oh no, I think it's yeah. Sorry, someone want to say something? Yeah, in the old ways. Mm-hmm.
You had one of the actions in the microflow slide instead of the microflow itself, so that's why you couldn't find documentation.
Oh yeah, indeed, yeah. Well, I was having the settings one which doesn't have properties. Yeah. So the old way is that we thought you can maybe do something like this, which is like referring to no QA, and I think like a double. Whatever, something like this, and then you say, I don't know, some reason here. But we don't support this anymore. We got feedback that, yeah, it's a little bit crappy that we are misusing the documentation view for this. So we haven't tested the new functionality very extensively yet, but the idea is that per project, you will have a configuration, a YAML that states in this list, in the skip list, for a given document, which rules are skipped and for what reason. I don't have an example here right now, but maybe that's something I can show in the next session, which I need to, let's say, prepare a little bit for. So that's one way to do it. So what this means is then, we decouple the skipping or management of skipped rules and documents in a separate file away from your document or from your project, but still it's tracked within your project if you wanted to.
So just the opportunity for situation, for example, to overwrite all some of our teams, skip some of the rules, or for example, have the ignore non-QA set defaults. On a platform level, can in our pipeline run, we can basically say ignore no QA true and skip nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that teams that have skip rules, we can actually say, no, we don't want to skip those rules. We want to know exactly, we want to run every rule available, or we want to skip only specific rules. So,
Yeah. So okay, maybe if I need to I think the sound from your side is a bit bad, Bart. I'm not sure if it's just me. Okay. Okay. I suggest maybe to repeat if I understood. Try to decode what Bart said. Probably not complete. So with this system, we will also. I think it was already possible, but also I think you get better now. Is that in your project you can have the configuration. You are free to define how you want it, but if you're part of a bigger organization where you can have, let's say, more stronger or stricter, more strict governance rules, then you can plug in different set of rules on a higher level that you can either enforce on a system level, but also in pipelines where you can have them checked, and also on a pipeline level, maybe you also want to not skip certain things, so you can override these configurations on a governance level. So there's like these type of flexibilities you can do. We're a little bit halfway. So this is roughly the base, and with this we can now create a rule. So to do that, I have already kind of created one example here. I could have also done it live, but I guess I want to prepare something that works. Let's say, and we can create a new one together if you have ideas. So the rules in so the idea with this one is it's called naming conventions. So the idea here is that we want to have microflows to meet a certain type of how the name is called for microflows. So that it always has to have a certain. It has to meet a certain pattern or convention, as we call it. And a rule always starts with a metadata. It has to describe what this rule does, etc., so that in case we present this to the user actually knows what the rule is about and how to fix certain things, etc. So, for instance, here we will have like if this rule fails for a certain document, then then he will also show this message to say, yeah, you should need to rename your microflow, essentially. And other things that is important is the rule number. We use the rule number it's very important in this case because this is what is used to do like skipping a certain rule from a document, etc. So this rule number is important to have. And it has to be unique within your rule set. So what this means, or within your total rule set, or your total rules. So it's important that the rule numbers, they do not conflict, that they do not appear multiple times essentially in your rule sets, because if it does, then it will be inconsistent, and then you will not know which one to really use for a certain number. So that's something that you need to make sure that they don't conflict. The other one that is important is input. What input defines is the pattern of documents that will be run against this rule. So the idea is that for every how linting works is they will grab all the rules that you have defined for this the actor for the project, and then he will use this input pattern to check for each document within the project whether I should run this document against this rule or not. Because we don't want to run everything against it, because it makes little sense if you want to, let's say, check a page for. It makes no sense essentially to input a page into this function, because that's not what we are interested in. So we're interested in microflows. So that's what this pattern will say. Will tell Mxlint to only apply this rule to microflows in this case. That's the first part, and the second, and probably the most important, is the actual rule. So all rules define a function called rule. It has to be called this way and always accepts the input as argument. And this input is essentially the document that we have shown earlier. So it will be essentially this. This is your input. So that's how, that's what you essentially get. Maybe I was skipping this a bit too quick. I forgot to mention that this one is a JavaScript rule. So Mxlint supports three languages. So the first is Rego, which you can Google or learn more about. The second is JavaScript, like this one. And the third is TypeScript, because you can easily transpile TypeScript to JavaScript. And TypeScript is a bit nicer to write, I suppose. But for this, for today, we'll use just regular JavaScript, because TypeScript compiles JavaScript to run. So that's why that's what you essentially choose. So this is just a part of like a script that it needs to define a rule function, and then we will call the rule function from within Mxlint. We will load this in and then feed it with the right arguments and call this function and collect the results. So that's what happens behind the scenes. In the rule, we always define, you don't have to, but this is a way. So whatever you do in the function, we don't really care. As long as you return this object, this is a this is, let's say, the interface. You have to have a rule function. It always has to return this object back. Like in this case, the first argument is the first return of the object is allow, whether it's allowed or not. Like you check the input. This is the given input, and you check something against it, and then you conclude whether it's allowed or not. So that's the first return value, so to speak. Second is the errors. So if you do run into issues, then you might want to tell the user, like, what did you find that is not good, so that the user can act on that more specifically. So that's what the second argument is the list of errors, so that the user can get proper feedback. So this one is very simple. What we want to do is that given if you have this as input, this document, we want to check if the name, so in this case, in all the documents, there is a attribute called name. So in this case, is the this microflow name is called BCO user. We want to check that the input, so the input is that document dot name, that he always has to start with this one of these prefixes. That's plus the underscore. And so if it isn't the case, then we have detected let's say an error or an inconsist or a failure, and then we will push the error message, so to speak, into this errors list with some description, so that so that the user can fix it. And then the allow result is then, in this case, simple. We check if there's any errors. If there's any errors, then if there are no errors, then it's good, essentially, right? So that's what this does. And so if you will run, what was it? Oh yeah, so we already actually run the test with it, so we can see here that my first logic microflow name does not match, does not meet our naming convention requirements. So he will then say, in this case, a message for this rule, this document. We have a naming convention failure, so to speak, with and then with a description of what it must be. So we can, let's say, fix that now. We can rename this and call it, I forgot what else we can put, like BRO. I can export again. And then we'll see that let me see. Interesting. Oh, wait, I think I know what happened. Okay. Maybe there is. Okay, for some unknown reason, maybe there's a bug. This file was not removed. I will remove it because it should be removed, as in this doesn't exist anymore. Maybe there's a bug. Let me rerun. Is that? Yeah. Okay. So that one is deleted. Yeah. So fill in again. Then now that that failure is gone. In order to, we figured so to create a rule, you need somewhat like an understanding of the input of the document that you are checking. So there's some very easy ones you can check. There are some more complicated ones, as this document can be a bit complicated sometimes. We have also we try to make rule creation a bit easier. So rule creation is very similar to unit testing in a way. So we have created a function called test rule in Mxlint. Test rules. Right. And I need to tell him config. Yeah. So what we have done is you can also like write tests in a easier way by defining, in this case, what would be some like different structures of input. So in this case, what we want is, for instance, if you get an input that has a name that has this value, then we expect the result to be allowed true. And if we have another one that says have like a very similar input, but the name is not according to what we want it to be, where we need to be, then we expect it to be false. So this is how you can essentially define different test cases, like test inputs for your rule that with the outcome that you wanted to have to be tested, so that you can essentially write the rule once, and then you can define a few different scenarios, and then you can validate this way without having to to create very large documents like this, or create microflows. You can do it still if you want, but as you can imagine, the rule doesn't really care about the other attributes. It only cares about the name in this case. So in that case, then you can create very small test cases that will validate your logic. So that's so this is how you create a rule. Is there anyone wants any questions or wants to try a new rule?
2 questions. One is because I can see that, for instance, there are many naming conventions that could be possible, right? So maybe Clever or Mendix or IBM have different kind of naming conventions, but now everyone needs to make their own rule. Is there a way that we can store that naming convention, that we keep the rule the same? But the naming convention is stored then in somewhere else in the config file, or is that just not possible yet?
So that's not possible yet. I can imagine indeed that what we want is to have, in this case, like options, to have a list of options that you can pass, and that the options will essentially override this list, for instance, with something else, and we can include pass the options from the Mxlint YAML where you can set them. That is one of the things that we are with the Mxlint YAML, like with the configuration file, it will make this type of features much more easier to track and use. So that's one of the things one of the features that we will be adding soon.
Yes, and then one other thing, I guess some like Bart already shared, they might also have a rule for name conventions. Maybe not included in the standard rule set. Is there a way where we can share those rules without being included, like your own custom rules that might apply to others as well? But you don't want to include. I don't know. Maybe they should be included in there, but they might be highly custom, right? So, for instance, I made a rule where we need to set the data views should be always vertical because of styling issues, but that might not apply to others. They want that, or maybe even not for projects that might differ. They might have a label width of 3 or even 6. I don't know. And you can set that, but like this, like my rule is useful for others, but might it's not not a way right now, because it's super specific, as it's only setting it to vertical and not to horizontal, for instance.
Yeah, I understand. So I think the idea with that is that we probably want, so you can already, what you can already do with the new CLI is that you could technically start your own MX rules project and have your own stuff and manage your own things there, and other people that think, oh, you have great rules, you have great taste for naming conventions or other things that good practices, then people can actually link to yours and then pull them in through the configuration file, for instance. So that's at least
your own repo.
So that's how at least I see it like that. That's the best way, I think. And then and if you think, or if the community thinks certain rules are so generic that everybody should consider it, then I think then we should add them to the official rules. And I'm also considering that we will split this up into different like categories and different, maybe for different sectors. I'm not sure, depending on what type of rules people are willing to make open to publish, to share with the world. We can also have categories here so that we can actually, from officially, we can also like publish not a single rules, but like different type of rule sets that people can grab from official, let's say officially from us. So that's the direction I think it should go.
Yeah, if I can pitch in there, I'm not sure if my sound now is okay.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, I switched my my microphone. Yeah, so if I with the whole naming convention thing, I created a rule that basically includes all the naming conventions that are in the official Mendix documentation. So not just the before commit, after commit, that kind of stuff, but also the calculated ones and the workflow, validation microflows, all the prefixes basically. And how we approach the default set of rules and the custom ones for ourselves. If there is something in the default rules that we don't like, we just remove it from the, no, let's start over. We download the rule set from the Mxlint GitHub repository, place it in our own Git repository on our own cloud, and then just basically cherry pick which ones we want to keep and which ones we want to throw away. In theory, because in practice we just use the full rule set from the GitHub repo. But yeah, we basically copy the rule set and then add onto it the ABN AMRO specific ones. For example, we have a very specific rule that we only allow certain versions of Mendix Studio Pro to be used, which is not something that we are going to contribute to the open source project, because that is very ABN AMRO specific. But that naming convention rule, for example, might be of use for the whole community. And I am planning to actually open a pull request sometime in the near future to add that to the default rule set, to the out-of-the-box rule set. And if you then want to use that or expand on it, or don't want to use it, then you are free to do so, of course. But yeah, that's basically how we do it. We use the default rule set, and if there's one or two rules from the default rule set that we don't like, or that we have an ABN AMRO specific implementation of, we just remove it from the default rule set after download.
Yeah.
But that is very, very organization specific. So yeah, that's also why I always try to make it as generic as possible, based on well, in this example, the official Mendix documentation, with some other stuff mixed in as well, that we think are basic hygiene things, like complex microflows or not too many input parameters. I have a rule for stop flows that have roles assigned to them, or exposed constants, all that kind of stuff. And some of them we contribute back to the open source project, some of them we don't. And if there's a rule contributed by someone else in the open source project that we don't want to use, then we download the rule set, remove that particular rule, and yeah, use that update rule set basically.
But I think some of them are valid for other organizations as well. For instance, maybe the constants that are not exposed, that might be, I don't know, like where would we? Well, yeah, you're now keeping that for ABN, which is of course also fine. But if we want to take this off, maybe it's also good to share these kind of things without.
Yeah, definitely.
Just saying this is not generic enough to be in the generic rule set, but you could use this as an add-on, maybe experimental or so. So maybe within the in the GitHub rule Mendix Mxlint rules. Have a different folder where it says experimental rules or something like that, where you can just put like things that might be generic enough or not generic enough for everyone, but at least could help everyone by adjusting a few lines of code.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So I think that's something that we will explore. We need to restructure this project a little bit, but I think, or start a new repo for it. That's also possible. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's actually good. We don't really need everything to be like super generic for it to be useful. I think it's indeed more like triggering people to know what is possible, and they can use that, and then from there, maybe it will become more generic, or maybe not, but it can be still useful for others. Yeah. With this, it also sounds like then we might want to include in the new version of Mxlint in the config file to support maybe excluding or whitelisting rules or something based on ID, so that you don't actually need to manage like exclusions yourself. So you can actually say just pull it from official, and then but I don't want a certain set of those, so I can just put them on a blacklist, and then they will not be included. For instance, that will make I guess easier to keep your rules in sync.
I kind of like the idea that Jure had with the experimental ones. Maybe we can think of a way to have kind of a promotional process.
Yeah.
So if you want to contribute a rule, then it becomes experimental first, and then people can play with it, and then it becomes a beta, for example, and then it becomes included in the overall rule set. And in the config file, you can then say, okay, I want to exclude all experimental rules, but I would like on my test environment, for example, I would like to start testing the beta ones, for example, something like that.
I was also thinking of, and I'm not sure whether it's already possible, but to stack certain rule sets, and maybe with the same thought, as in we also see that with our customers. We have it's similar with ACR that we mainly use nowadays. You have your company guidelines, and you have your customer guidelines, and then you have your product guidelines, and they all stack up on each other, and that's
that's already possible.
That's great.
So the idea is that you can actually have multiple social rule sets. They all come. You can pull them from different places, and then it will just merge them all into one big one. So they can come from different places.
And then, if I'm understanding correctly, and this is me thinking out loud with some assumptions, if the IDs are duplicate, then it's assumed to be the same rule. As I can imagine, if you have your source, which is Mxlint, that's the foundation, and you have your version of it, which is slightly or added rules that they don't duplicate.
Yeah, so it's the duplication. It doesn't handle it now. So I guess in this case, if you have let's say a rule number 1 defined in here, and then you have rule number 1 also defined in here, I would expect, I guess, the lowest one, which I guess it comes last, will override the other one, I suppose. But that's something that we haven't implemented. It will just crash essentially now if you have.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I can imagine a best practice with prefixes, like in if you know, then you can say for Clever we will start using internally the prefix 001 as, and then you're fine. It's but it's good to know.
Or maybe an additional prefix, like for example, it doesn't have to be a number. For example, for ABN's MRO specific rules, AAB underscore and then the rule number for ABN MRO Bank, and for Clever maybe CLE or CLVR, something like that. So you know which ones are your specific, your organization specific rules, and which ones are from the out of the box Mxlint repo.
Yeah, then you can use both structures.
Indeed.
Cool.
All right, we are pretty much almost time. I maybe just want to show you one cool thing. Is the so this is cursor. I'm not sure you guys use cursor or wants to. I guess with Mendix it's not possible. But if you do, since I know AI is super hip, so I can't resist not saying anything about AI. You can actually use LLM to create a rule with human language. So if you check out the rules folder and repo, you can actually tell him, in this case, to like implement a new rule and then tell him there's my existing rule that already exists that looks like this, and this is my my input document. So I guess one of the steps is to create first in your test project like a situation that you want to be checked against, and then you can run Mxlint export model. Then there's a YAML. You can input that YAML together with an example rule with your prompt to say this is what I want to be enforced, and this is an example rule. Create a new rule for me, meeting those requirements. So that's roughly how this.
Maybe we can add something to the GitHub repository as well for sharing prompts.
Mm-hmm.
Because some boilerplate AI prompts that can be used to to ask an AI to create a rule for you. To be honest, I'm not really a big proponent of AI-assisted development, but that's something else entirely. I do understand that I am one of the few that doesn't really like AI-assisted development. But it could be useful to share some of the system prompts that you could use to do AI-assisted rule development.
Yeah, I think it will be probably one of the next few sessions is we can do like use that as the next topic to get to put a little bit more spotlight on that. I agree that for most things, I guess, like Fade depends. It's just a tool. How you use it responsibly. I think that's the important thing. I think in Mxlint case, if you can provide good input and what you expect, and the logic does what it does, and you can validate it, I think that's pretty safe to use. So at least that's my personal take with it. All right, so this was our first walk-in session. I hope you enjoy it, and I will organize a next one very soon, and we'll keep you guys in the loop.
Yeah, and maybe also, Stephen, good to mention that we are actually planning a new Mendix meetup on the 21st of April.
Yeah, indeed. So,
Stephen and I will be organizing a Mendix meetup for this, for the whole Mxlint subject, and maybe some other stuff as well, but we'll need to discuss the actual contents. So keep that date in your blocked in your agenda already. The 21st of April.
Yeah, in Mendix office, Rotterdam. So, and we will share some of that on LinkedIn, so you will be able to.
And we will expect all of you there.
Yes. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one, and see you next time.
Nice discussion.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao.